when parents across the county who have got kids who are 10 and 11 years old are applying for secondary schools. And we've sort of learned quite a lot really by looking at what has happened in previous years, and we want to sort of share some tips and information with you today to help you all navigate the process of applying for a secondary school. So I'm here, I'm Rebecca Murphy, as I said. I've got two colleagues with me, got Laurie Harvey and Amy Taylor, and they're going to be helping me today with the presentation and also answering your questions. We've got an hour. We will share the slides afterwards. We've got questions that people have asked in advance. We'll be doing what we can to work our way through those questions. I'm just going to move on to some housekeeping as well before we sort of get stuck into the details. So this has been really, really popular. We've had sort of more than 300 people who have registered for today's event, which is absolutely great. But I think what that will also mean is that people are going to be probably joining as I talk. So please obviously mute yourself. The opportunity for questions will be when I just run through some slides. Laurie, if you could just put the slides back up, please. Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to cover a couple of main things really. First one, to just tell you very briefly how the team works, to let you know why it is that we're doing this engagement, and then to run through some of the details that you need to know about applying for a secondary school place in 2023. If we can go into the next slide, I'll just cover off the rest of the housekeeping. Can we go into the housekeeping slide, please, Laurie?
Sorry, can you not see it? It's up on my screen.
It was there, but then it disappeared. So, yeah, we got it. Great, that's the housekeeping one. Yep, thank you. I've already covered some of this, but if we can just make sure that everybody's on mute, please. There'll be an opportunity to ask sort of questions when I've whizzed through the slides. If you want to ask questions as I'm talking, please use the chat function. We'll be keeping an eye on that. We might not necessarily be replying immediately, but anything that isn't covered here today, we will pull out, we'll put it in an FAQ document and we will circulate it to everybody who's been here. I think I've already said that we will be sharing the recording and the slides with you afterwards. And I think because we've got such a large number of parents here, if we can just try and avoid, please, sort of sharing sort of personal details, children's names, anything like that. Just bear in mind that we've got a lot of people here. Okay, thanks. If you move on to the next slide. So in terms of the team who work on this, we have a school admissions team. We deal with all aspects of school admissions, so people who are applying for reception, junior, secondary school places, people who want to move schools in year, parents who perhaps haven't been happy with the outcome of the offer they've had and choose to appeal. We also do the EVEN+ exams, and we do free school meals. So it's a sort of a broad remit. We get a lot of contact from parents. So we have about 25,000 applications go through our system every year, and about 80,000 calls from parents. So it's a really, really busy service. We've spent some time recently sort of trying to get under the skin of what it is that you need to know most as a parent and what it is that you need sort of help with from us as a team. And with that in mind, we work to a purpose. This is the reason that we believe that we are here, and it's to help you as parents decide on what a suitable school place is for your child, and then to provide you with that place. On to the next slide, please, Laurie. A really important milestone for parents is obviously that transition of their kiddies from primary school into secondary school. It all happens about a year in advance. So you're here today because you know that your child needs to have a secondary school place, year 7, in September 23, so next year, but that you need to apply now. The deadline is the 31st of October. And what we've sort of learned is that there are some things that you need to be thinking of as you go through this application process. And if you've already applied and off the back of today's webinar, you think that there are some things that you might do differently around your preferences, that's fine. You can contact us and you can still go and change. So I think the first sort of point that we would make is that sort of focus really on your child when you're deciding what the most suitable school place for them might be. I'm a mum myself, and I know that we get sort of all sorts of chats going on with parent groups. There's obviously rumours around what schools are good, what are bad, and I think it's about sort of doing your research and to find out whether or not the local schools in your area whether what you're hearing is reflective of the reality. So the first thing that we would say is go to the school open days for your local schools. The second thing that we would say is talk to your child's teacher. So they'll be in year 6 at the moment. They won't have probably been in year 6 for very long, but your year 6 teacher should have a sense of what your child is like, what their strengths are, what their personality is like, and can obviously engage with the year 5 teacher to get a sense again as to what schools might be a suitable fit for them. So we'd really encourage you to go and sort of speak to the school and to look around your local schools and to get a sense as to whether the things that you hear are reflective of the reality. You'll want to know things, I'm sure, about how will your child get to that school, what clubs have they got, what their curriculum is there, what performance is like. You'll perhaps want to know about pastoral care. You might want to know about whether or not they have a good SEND provision, depending, and that's special educational needs, depending on your individual child. The other sort of things worth sort of considering are what your catchment school is. We don't guarantee that people will get their catchment school, but more often than not, you stand a good chance for getting your catchment school. So we absolutely recommend that you have a look at your catchment school, that you perhaps look at their admissions criteria. So that will be basically the admissions criteria sets out how school places are allocated. Okay, and if a school is a very popular school and it's oversubscribed, and what we mean by that is that we tend to get more applications for that school than there are places, the admissions criteria becomes really, really important. So usually it will sort of be a set of requirements that sort of sets out how children will be ranked when there's more children than places. And it's fairly typical that if it's a looked after child or a child in need, they're often top of the list. After that is often kids who are in catchment area and already have a sibling at the school, and so on. It goes down there. And you can usually get a relatively good sense as to whether you're likely to get a place at your local catchment. So for example, if you apply for a school that is not your catchment school and you live 10 miles away and you do not have a sibling at that school, if that school is oversubscribed, you will be highly unlikely to get a place. What becomes important then is what preferences you put on your application form, and I've made the point that they are preferences. We will absolutely process applications in a way that means we will always give people the highest possible preference that we can give them. But we also know that there are some myths around this. So, for example, if you put one preference, that does not mean that that is the school that you will get. If you don't meet that school's criteria, you will get the next available school. That could be anywhere in the county. So we always say, think about what the first preference is, but really important to also think what a viable plan B and plan C would be. So we always encourage you to put at least 3 preferences down. I think there's some points on the slides here about whether or not you live in the catchment area, whether or not that guarantees you a place. I think I've covered some of this, but to reiterate, it doesn't guarantee you a place, but you usually have a good chance because you're in area. But for example, Kenilworth School is an oversubscribed school. So if you lived on the outer edge of the catchment area and you didn't have a sibling at that school, then there is a chance, this certainly on how the allocations have been for 2022, that you would not have got a place at Kenilworth. Now, obviously, you can make an appeal against that, but it wouldn't necessarily change the outcome. That would depend on the appeal panel. So it's really important that you think what a viable plan B would be. We always recommend that over and above just putting down one preference. Some of the other examples we've seen are where people want the school sort of so much that they put the same school for all 6 preferences. Again, that doesn't increase your chance of getting the school. So really our top tip is to list several schools, make sure they're all sort of schools that would be viable for you as a family. Get your application in on time. That's really, really key. The 31st of October is key, because anybody who applies after that date, their application doesn't get considered until after the initial round of offers in March. So you're really reducing your chance of getting an offer. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. Thanks, Laurie. All right, I think I've sort of covered most of that. I suppose to sort of sum up the information around the preferences and the need to sort of do your research and get to know your local schools is just the other point again about having a conversation with the school and getting a sense from the primary school as to, you know, what your child's like in a school setting, because obviously we see them at home, which is different to how they are at school, and to get a sense as to which of the local schools might be well suited to them. Okay, if we can go on to the next slide, please, Laurie. We've sort of pulled out a specific slide here on education and healthcare plans, and that's because the application process is different. The deadline is still the same, so if your child has got an EHCP, you still need to apply by the 31st of October 2022, which is the national deadline for secondary schools, secondary school applications. But you need to apply using a different form, and we will make sure that we share that form in the slides. I think if you have a child who has got an EHCP, obviously you'll know about that, and our Send and Inclusion team have been writing out to parents in September where their kids do have an EHCP to set out what that application process is, and obviously to share the form with them. So I just wanted to mention it here because I'm sure it will apply to some people on this webinar, but you should have been contacted and the form should have been shared with you by now. If you believe your child's got an EHCP and you haven't had any contact from Sendar, then by all means sort of pop your name and an email address in the chat with a link saying Sendar, and we can contact you outside of here. Okay, next slide, please. There's lots of resources on our website that will be hopefully helpful to you. We've put together a parent guide, which is relatively short. It just captures the main points that I've covered today about speak to your school teacher, research your local schools, put several preferences down and apply on time, which are the key messages that we want to get across today. But by all means, have a look at that form. There's some general information on our website as well. You can get links through to school websites, and there you can see their admissions arrangements, and there's also a video on there which we'll play in a minute, and importantly, there's a request for help form. We know that our phone lines are very busy, and we know that it can be difficult to get through on our phone lines. So if you are sat here thinking, I've got some questions and actually I just want to speak to somebody, then by all means call us. But equally, if you fill in the request for help form, we are actively working through the people who contact us through those forms, and we will call you. So depending on what suits you, that's another way to contact us. And then finally, we have an advocate form, and that might be that if you want somebody to sort of support you with this process and sort of do the application on your behalf, you can fill in a form, name that person, and that means that we can speak to them and sort of, you know, share the personal information and guide them through the application process on your behalf. So I'm just going to stop talking now. We're going to quickly show you the video. It's only 3 minutes, and I think it just is a helpful way of reiterating what I've covered, and then we'll move on to the questions and answers. We've already had some people put questions in advance. We'll pick some of those up, but equally we will then open it up to everybody else. So if you do have a question, please put your hand up, and we'll pick them up, and you can take your mic off and ask the question, and between me and Laurie and Amy, we'll do our best to answer your questions. Okay.
Moving to secondary school can feel like a big step, but there's lots of things you can do to make it easier on you and your child. And we're here to help too. Firstly, the earlier you start preparing for the move, the better. The summer term when your child is in year 5 is ideal. This gives you plenty of time to think about which schools might be right for your child. Our website has a handy map that will show you if you live in a priority area for a local school. warwickshire.gov.uk/priority area. And it also has a directory of all the secondary schools in Warwickshire. apps.warwickshire.gov.uk/find a school. There are some things you might want to think about when deciding on which schools you want to shortlist as preferences. You could start by talking to your child's teacher, who will know what might suit them. You may also consider how your child will travel between home and school every day, as a long bus journey can be expensive and might mean they have less time to do other things they love. It's also a good idea to look at the school's admission arrangements, as these tell you how they decide who gets a place at their school. You could also visit their websites, find them on social media, read inspection reports and look at exam results, and talk to parents with children at those schools already. Once you have your shortlist of schools, the best thing to do is visit each of them, either at an open evening for new parents or ask the school for your own tour. You might also want to discuss with them any specific support that your child needs. You can choose up to 6 schools to include on your application. You don't have to use all 6 choices, but we recommend you should always include your priority catchment school, because this is the school that is most likely to be able to offer your child a place. Sometimes parents or carers only include one school on their application form, perhaps because they believe it's the only one that can meet their child's needs, or they think that this will guarantee their child a place at that school. But this isn't true, and we often see that families are disappointed on offer day when they are offered a school that doesn't reflect their preferences at all. This can be stressful for everyone, including your child. To stop this happening to you, we recommend that you include at least 3 schools on your application. When you have decided on your preferences, you're ready to apply. You can do this online at warwickshire.gov.uk/secondary place. The deadline to apply is the 31st of October, so don't miss it. Children who apply after this date are much less likely to get a place at one of their preferred schools. Finally, we know this isn't always an easy decision to make. So if you need any help or support with any part of the application process, you can tell us by filling out this short form, warwickshire.gov.uk/schoolplacehelp. Once you've done that, we'll contact you to make sure you get the help you need.
Okay, thanks, Laurie, for that. So I'm going to start picking up some of the questions now. Some have been asked in advance, and equally we've had questions pop up on the chat, and I'm sure people are going to start putting their hand up to ask questions here. Before I get onto questions, one thing I will just say is the 11 plus results have just come out. They came out yesterday. So I know we've been very busy on the phones today with questions around 11 plus. I'm happy to pick up some general questions around 11 plus in terms of applying for a secondary school place. But I think if we're starting to get into nitty gritty around testing scores and qualifying schools, there is a webinar on Thursday, and that is specifically for grammar school queries. And I think that would be the appropriate forum for that, because it won't be relevant to everybody on this webinar today. Okay, so I think one of the questions that I saw was, is the deadline on the 31st of October, 5 p.m. or midnight? And I know my colleague Amy will come in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's midnight. Is that right, Amy?
It's 11:59 p.m.
Okay,
on the
thank you.
31st.
But it is 5 p.m. As per the website.
Okay, can we just use the hands to ask questions, and we'll pick it up from the chat, because otherwise it's just going to get a bit chaotic. So I can see a hand up from Saeed. So Saeed, if you take yourself off mute, then you can come and then come in and ask a question.
Hi, Rebecca. This is Said. My question, I certainly live outside the priority area. I live in Northampton. So my question, if I put one of the grammar schools in Warwick and I put Northampton school as my third preference, will that be considered in that way, that because I am near to the Northampton, that third choice school, you will put me the third one because that is nearest, or the priority will be going in that sequence 1, 2, 3?
Okay, so for any secondary school application that you make, we don't look at the order of your preferences. We don't look at the order that you've named the schools on your application, unless we find ourselves in a situation where we can offer your child a place at more than one of the schools that you've named. So in the case of those families that don't live in Warwickshire and will be submitting their secondary school application to their home authority, but will be naming Warwickshire secondary schools on the application, we will exchange data with other authorities. So we will know which Warwickshire schools you've applied for, and we will consider your application alongside everybody else. If we can offer a place, we'll let your home authority know. If it's not your highest preference and they can offer your child one of your higher preference from your application, then they will do so. And again, they will let us know that offer is not required. All that is done way before the 1st of March. So on the 1st of March, regardless of where you live, you'll receive one secondary school offer from your home authority. So your home authority is where you live. It's who you pay your council tax to. That's who you need to apply through, and that's who you will receive your secondary school offer from.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Amy. I know there's been a question in here about, will the webinar recording be shared? Yes, it absolutely will be. I think I've seen another question in the chat about if you don't get your first preference, will you automatically go on the waiting list for your first preference? And yes, we put you on the waiting list for any of the preferences above the one that you were offered, and that does happen automatically. And when we go and reallocate the offers, which we continue to do from the middle of March onwards, if we can allocate a place to a higher up preference, we will do that, and we will then contact you. Okay, Dorothy, you've got your hand up. If you can take yourself off mute, please, and ask your question.
I'm Dorothy. Yeah, I have the question because in my priority area, there's only one school. So my question, my worry is about I cannot choose only one school. It's not safe for me. So what should I do if only one school is within my priority area?
You're on mute, Amy.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry, my
Can you
colleague
hear me?
Amy's coming
Can
in.
you
Thank
hear
you,
me?
Amy. Yeah, we
Yeah,
heard.
so-
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
most people are only have one school as their priority school, their catchment school. I think for all Warwickshire secondary schools, you'll only be in the catchment for one. Some of our secondary schools do not operate a catchment area. They will offer places based on other categories. So, for example, if you have an older child already attending the school who will still be on roll come September 2023, those applicants will get higher priority. So have a look at our website, check which is your catchment school, your priority school. What we recommend that you name your priority school on your application somewhere, if you are in catchment for a secondary school. But everyone's only in catchment for one secondary at the most in Warwickshire.
Yeah, I know. So what should I do? Because I for the place safety, I need to make more than 2 preferences. That will be much more safe for me to get the place of the secondary school. So I know I will choose the school within my catchment area. So the next step for the second school and the first school, how to choose, how to make the decision on that too.
And that's a decision that's completely up to you as individual families, as parents and carers of children. We can suggest that you look at other schools in your local area or schools that are nearest to where you live. We would also recommend that you look at transport options. How will your child get to any of those other schools each day? We do have information on our website about school transport. If you follow the admissions pages, there is a link to the school transport page. Just bear in mind, if you are looking for a school bus service to a school that's a bit further away, there's never a guarantee that there's a free seat on those buses if you need to pay for one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about looking at the schools that are closest to you and looking at the schools which you think would be suitable for your child.
Yes, I know. So the distance is very important issue I need to take considerate.
Yes, and when we offer places, we use what we call a straight line home to school distance. So we prioritise applicants as the crow flies, not on a travelling distance. So that's also worth bearing in mind.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Dorothy. If you can put yourself on mute, and thank you for your question. I'm going to pick up a question that was submitted in advance. If you just give me a second to do that. So if I put my catchment school 4th on the list with non-catchment and grammar schools ahead of it, are we guaranteed our catchment school, or are we penalised for not putting it first? Amy, yeah.
Okay, so as I confirmed earlier, we don't look at your preference order. We consider all of the schools that you've named in one go, and we'll offer a place at the highest ranked school that we can on your application. Legally, that's a legal thing that we have to do, is operate what's called an equal preference system. So we don't give any priority to the school that you've named first on your application over a school that you've named second, third, fourth, and so on. Secondly, there is never a guarantee that you will be offered a place at your catchment school. That's never something that we guarantee. What we advise is that you name it somewhere on your application, because you'll have more chance of being offered a place at that school, because most schools operate a catchment area and give higher priority to applicants who live within that area, but we would never guarantee you'll get a place.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I'm going to pick one up from people who've got their hands up now. So Emma, you've got your hand up. If you can come off mute, please, and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah. So my husband and I are separated, and we both live in the catchment for the school that we prefer. Our daughter lives with me primarily, but we share time with her, so she also lives with her father as well. He lives closer to the school, but she's registered at my address. So I think I probably know the answer to the question, but obviously we have more chance of getting her into the school we want if we list his address as opposed to mine as the primary address on the application form. So yeah, I just wanted to ask if that's, as parents that share a child, can you do that or not?
Yes, so in the case of split families, what we ask is that you, on the application for admissions purposes, you use the address where the child sleeps for the majority of the school week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, in our legal documentation, that is what we ask you to do. If there's an equal time, say you have arrangements over a fortnight, and the time the child spends sleeping at each parent's house is equal, then we would ask the two parties to agree on an address to use purely for admissions purposes. We can still use both parents or carers as a contact and ensure that both parents and carers receive the same communication that we send out.
Okay. Obviously it matters to us because logistically she'll be traveling from both households over the course of, you know, her time going in and out of school. So if we didn't get that school, logistically it would be very difficult for us. So what you're saying is if we split the time equally, it doesn't matter which address we put down, but if we don't, we need to put the primary address down.
The address, yeah, the address where she sleeps for most of the school week. Okay.
And can we add some sort of detail to the application form just to explain that situation? Does that have any bearing on the admissions process?
The application process itself does allow you the opportunity to name reasons that you're making a preference for that school. It may be looked at, but as far as I'm aware, it's not part of any oversubscription criteria for any of our secondary schools. So it might be looked at, but I don't think it would be taken into account in terms of prioritising the application.
Right. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Emma, for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pick up another one from people who've got their hands up. So Vijay, Sumesh, if you could come off mute, please, if you'd still like to ask a question and ask your question. Great,
hello.
thank you. Hi.
Hello. Thank you. I have actually, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can.
I have actually submitted my application for the secondary school and wish to change the order of my preferences. And I've actually sent an email to admissions@warwickshire.gov.uk saying that I would like to change the order of my preference, but I just got an automated reply saying, you know, it's all busy. And I also tried to reach the phone line and I can't reach anyone. So just want to be assured that I could do that before the deadline and how I can do it, please.
Thank you. And Amy, if we update somebody's preferences for them, will that update be reflected in the portal?
So those updates will be reflected in the portal when we send our offers on the 1st of March, but not before. Not before. Okay, yeah. So it is a matter of us making. So Vija, on that, I think if you can just make sure, please, we will be working through the email, so we will come back to you on that. And that's the confirmation that you would need, is that you've had an email from us where we've
that we have made the changes for you. Okay.
Sorry, I was unmuted and I couldn't hear a little bit of it. I had some background noise coming through.
Yeah, that's okay. So fundamentally, if you've already emailed us and you've asked us to make those changes, we will get to those and we will make those changes before the 31st of October. And what you would need to be happy that we've done that is an email from us that we will send confirming that we have made those preferences, made those preference changes. Okay.
And just to add on to that,
Sorry, I haven't actually asked you what changes I would like to make. So do you want me to mention that in the email?
Yeah, I think in which case then if you send us another email listing how you would like them to be reflected, and I think for everyone on the call, we get a lot, we get hundreds of emails a day, and it's really helpful if we can have child's name and date of birth in reference, please, in the email, because that means we can access the information quicker if we know who we're searching
for. Would you like
for.
a specific reference or just?
No, that's okay. Name, date of birth, and just the changes that you would like us to make in an email. We'll pick that up.
And that's in admissions@warwickshire.gov.uk, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Can I just add on to that, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that emails us by 11:59 p.m. on the 31st of October asking us to make changes to an application that's already been submitted, we will action. The application will remain as on time, even if we then make those changes after the 31st of October deadline. If you requested those changes before that deadline, we will update them.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Amy. Okay, Sanjeep Sahu, if you'd still like to ask a question, would you like to take your hands up? Thank you. You're off mute now.
Yeah, hi. Thank you.
Hi.
Actually, I'm keen to understand whether we can get a list of something, but I don't know whether he can secure a place in any of the grammar school. So that's why I'm just checking whether can we get a ranking by boys only.
When do we release that information, Amy?
Sorry, cut out. I didn't hear the question.
Yeah,
could you repeat the question?
Whether we can get a ranking of boys only for grammar school result.
Okay, so the rankings will be on our website by the end of this week. What I'll try and do is an overall ranking for each school, and then I will split them by gender, and that will just be published on our website for anyone to view. It won't be sent to parents directly.
Okay, so by end of this week means Friday.
By the end of Friday.
Okay, so on that basis we can select whether which school we can get based on the mark.
Yeah, you'll still have plenty of time to do your application.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay then. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. No, thank you for your question. Okay. Wayne Jones, if you'd still like to ask a question, do you want to come off mute, please? Yep.
Hi there.
Hi.
I think you've answered it. I caught the end of it. It was about where a child my child sleeps 5 days with me, 5 days with her mother continuously, and she wants to go to the school that's right by me. So I assume I just put the application from my address. I think that's been answered.
If both parents agree, then yes, that's fine.
That's perfect. While I've got you, I don't know whether you can shed any light on this. Where do we? Is it quite common? I see a lot of comments coming up that 11 plus results haven't come through, as haven't either. Is that quite normal?
There are a few that we're still sending. We have sent the majority now. We've sent over 2,000 of them. If you haven't received your results yet, drop us an email to the 11 plus inbox. So 11 plus the words at warwickshire.gov.uk, and we'll look into those individual cases.
11 plus the words at warwickshire.gov.uk.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks both.
Okay. Thanks for that question. So next we've got Fliss Prestige. If you still want to ask a question, can you come off mute, please?
Yeah, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Okay, my question is, I've put in my application form already, but my son is now in the process of the seeing if he can have an EHCP. I have emailed you guys to say, because I didn't put that on the application, I've emailed you separately to say, can it be added to the application before the 31st or whatever it is, because I was worried obviously it was going to get missed, but I haven't got one of those separate forms that you talk about, because obviously the decision hasn't been made yet. So what would you suggest? Do you think I need one of these forms, or do you think I should just be doing it the regular way?
I would suggest that you talk to your child plan coordinator. Do you know who that is? I don't need to know
do you
who,
mean
just do you
the
know?
Senko at the school?
Yes.
Do you mean that?
No,
So-
no, not the Senko at the school.
Right.
So if your child is going through the EHCP process,
Yes.
you'll be allocated a plan coordinator,
Right.
and they will consult with schools on your behalf.
Right.
When that process starts, once the plan is getting near to finalisation, they will start consulting with secondary schools, because what they'll do is 2 plans, one for year 6 and then one for year 7 transfer.
Right.
And it's the year 7 transfer one that you need to let them know what your preferences are.
Right. We haven't been allocated anybody yet.
It sounds like it's a bit too early in the process that you're following.
Yeah.
As soon as you know who the plan coordinator is, ask them how you can make them aware of your secondary school preferences.
So I'm guessing it may happen after the 31st, probably by now.
Yeah, but to be honest, if your child's got a plan, as long as they've got a plan by the 15th of February,
right,
your child will go to whichever secondary school is named on that plan.
15th of February.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happens, say, if they kind of reject the EHCP, but you're going to appeal? Would it still be the kind of same criteria as everybody else?
So we've got your application at the moment, haven't we? Not considering an EHC plan. That's fine. We'll leave that where it is for now, just in case the plan doesn't go through, or it doesn't go through before next September, which is unlikely, but we've got to think of all possibilities.
Exactly.
So we'll keep that as it is at the moment. If there's no plan by the 1st of March, we'll make an offer based on that current application. If we can't offer one of your higher preferences, then you can appeal for those schools by all means, and we'll let you know how to follow the school admission appeals process in March, so when the offers have been published.
That's great, thank you.
It won't take into account that the child has a plan, because we haven't made an offer on that basis, because a plan wasn't existed at that point. Right. If you disagree, if the plan is rejected and you disagree that it should have been rejected, then there is a separate process to follow through the SEND team, and it's more of a tribunal process rather than an appeal process, but they will explain that to you.
That's great. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for your question. Okay. Right, next question. Next one with the hand up is Hardwong. If you still want to ask a question, can you? Yeah, you've done it. Come off mute.
Yes.
Thank you.
I posted my question on the chat as well. So you mentioned that you treated the school equally, so it doesn't have any preference regarding if we put it on the first one or on the bottom one. So if we have a grammar school or a catchment school in the list, and if our little one, if lucky, meet the qualifying score, does it mean we got a chance to get to the catchment school, but then miss out on the grammar school?
Okay, so I'm going to explain how we would consider such an application, because it'll probably be useful to lots of people here. I'll use specific schools as an example, but I mean, by no means telling you that this is what the schools that you have to apply for or the order that you have to apply them in. It's an example. So my child sat the 11 plus test. He's applied for King Edward's in Stratford as his first preference. He's applying for Ulster Grammar School as his second preference. I know that our catchment school, our priority area school, is Stratford High School. so I'm going to put that as third. Just in case I don't get any of those, I know I've got 3 more preferences that I can use. As a Warwickshire resident, we get a maximum of 6. So I'm going to name the next closest schools to me, which would be St Benedict's Catholic High in Ulster, Ulster Academy, and Studley High School. So I've done 6 preferences. Hopefully I'm going to get one of those, but we'll find out in March. What will happen is when we come to making the offers, we'll look at King Edward's as the first preference. Does the child meet the qualifying standard? Can we make them an offer? No, the score that he's achieved in the 11+ test is too low for that school. We'll then look at Ulster Grammar School. It's my second preference. When we're considering your application, we'll look at it as though it was your first preference. Doesn't matter to us that it's second. Does he meet the qualifying score for Ulster Grammar? No, we can't have a place there. Move on to the next school, Stratford High. That's my priority school. Can we make him an offer? Yes, that's the school we'll offer on the 1st of March. My application for the other 3, Studley, Ulster Academy and St Benedict's, will be withdrawn. They'll be considered no further because they're lower preferences that I've ranked than the school that I've been offered. Then what we'll do is we'll look at the score achieved by the child in the 11+ test. For each grammar school, there's a qualifying score and a minimum waiting list score. So if your child hasn't quite met the qualifying score, or they have, but they can't be made an offer on the 1st of March for another reason, for example, if you're out of the priority area, but they have met the threshold for the waiting list for those schools, then they will automatically go on the waiting list from the 1st of March. So in my case, if my child has met the threshold for Ulster Grammar waiting list and King Edward's waiting list, but not quite made the qualifying score for both, even though we live in the catchment area for both of those schools in the priority circle, he will go on the waiting list and I'll be offered my 3rd preference of Stratford High.
So for that, then, does it mean that the order of the school in the preferences matter?
It matters to you, it doesn't matter to us. So we'll consider all your preferences until we could offer a school. We don't look at this person's put this school as first preference, so let's give them higher priority for a place.
Understood, thank you.
It was probably a long-winded example, but I hope it was helpful.
Okay, thanks for that, Amy, and thanks for your question. Next is Deepesh Parikh, please, if you still want to ask a question.
Yes.
I saw you come off mute. Yeah. Hi.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Yes. Is it possible to apply through multiple counties or not?
No, you have to apply through your home authority, so whoever you pay your council tax to. You pay your council tax to a district council, for example, North Warwickshire, then your local authorities, Warwickshire County Council.
But for example, if we are considering, so in my case, we are in Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
Now, if I apply through Oxfordshire County Council, then I know with reference to distance rule, the chances are very unlikely, even though my daughter has scored quite high for the Warwickshire entry school. So can we consider applying through Warwickshire County then?
Not unless you live in Warwickshire.
Even if we want to consider, so for example, relocating?
So if you're going to relocate, you can apply through Warwickshire once you have sufficient documentation of your move and you have moved into the property. Warwickshire operates an extended deadline of the 31st of December this year, 2022, for families who are moving either into or within Warwickshire to make an application or make changes to an existing application, as long as you are living in that new property by that date, 31st of December, and you have provided sufficient written documentation to Warwickshire County Council. And what we mean by sufficient documentation is outlined in our admission arrangements.
Yes,
just to explain that for people who are here, we would accept a copy of the completion letter from your solicitor if you're purchasing a property, or we would accept a signed copy of all pages of a tenancy agreement that starts on or before the 31st of December and ends after the 1st of September 2023.
And I think
But
on that,
doesn't.
I heard
Sorry.
something about your the score for the 11 plus. So if you live in Oxfordshire, you can apply for a Warwickshire school. So you can, when you apply to Oxfordshire County Council, you can list a Warwickshire school that you don't need to move house to do that. You can list the Warwickshire school, but obviously you're at some distance from the school, I would have thought, in most cases. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, Amy, am I right in saying that there would be some relevance to the score?
Yes. So you live in Oxfordshire. There's still a chance that you could be offered a Warwickshire Grammar School living in Oxfordshire, but it's never a guarantee that we can make.
Yes, I think the only confusion I had was, yes, we can apply through our home county, but then whether the distance rule presides everything else, or it is the catchment that matters more. That's the only confusion I have.
So for most of the grammar schools, they will consider those who live within the catchment area who have achieved the qualifying score and above before they consider those outside of the priority circle who've achieved the qualifying score and above.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for your question. I'm just sort of conscious of time. We've got about 6 minutes left, and I know my colleague Laurie has put a message in the chat, but you might not all have seen it. Just saying that if you've got your hand up, we might not get to you, so please pop the message in the chat, and we'll pick it up through the FAQs. And I think somebody was also sort of said, can these things be written down? So the stuff that's being asked, we will capture it in some FAQs and share that with you. So I'll quickly move on to the hands up. So I've got one. All it says, I'm afraid, is SS guest.
Hello.
Yep. Hi.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for your time this evening. I think you've already touched mostly on our question anyhow. The questions were obviously, if you live outside Warwickshire, then you must apply through your home county. And I think you already touched on that, so thank you for that. The second one was obviously rather worrying time for 11 plus candidates. And I think Amy mentioned earlier, you're still sending out some results because we haven't still received ours as of yet. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, if you're happy to put your I'm just trying to think how we pick that up, Amy, because I don't want to share the child's details in the chat,
No,
but we could
I think email the 11 plus inbox. So it's the address that I provided earlier, 11plus@warwickshire.gov.uk.
Yeah, and I've also put that email address in the chat as well, so you'll be able to see it through the chat. So thank you for that question. Okay, next one, hand up please, is it Yuvraj Bari, who I can see you've just asked a question in the chat actually. Do you want to come and ask that?
Just to add to the earlier question for house movers, it was mentioned that, so my case is about, we plan to move after 31st of October, but before 31st of December. So, and I live in a different county than Warwickshire. And if I plan to move after 31st of October, and if I go and because I'm paying council tax to my local county, I will, and if I decide to apply and fill in the application form for my local county, after moving to Warwickshire, will my form will be transferred to Warwickshire?
Yes, we would take over your application at that point. Once we receive documentation that you've moved into Warwickshire, we will take over your application.
So for such a cases where people plan to move after 31st of October, but before 31st of December, what is the best case? We shall be applying to the local county and then get that form transferred to the Warwickshire county, or we should use the 31st December timeline and not to apply the local county, first move there in Warwickshire and then use the 31st December timeline, which is an extended timeline for such movers.
I would recommend that you make an application now through the home authority that you live in at the moment, just in case the move doesn't happen before our extended December deadline. And then once you've moved into Warwickshire, send us the required documentation and we'll just take over the application that you've already submitted through the other authority.
Understood. So that has to be done maybe over the email or some other way, not online.
You can send it via email. Yeah.
Oh, understood. Thanks a lot.
There are some sort of questions in the chat about the grammar schools, and just to mention again, in case people missed it at the beginning, we have got a webinar on Thursday night specifically for grammar school queries. So it might be that you want to pop into that, or at least register for it, and then if you can't attend, you'll at least get the recording after the event. Okay, I'm just going to move quickly on to Amy Chidley. Amy, if you still want to ask a question, can you come off mute, please?
Yeah, I have done. Hi, thanks.
Hi.
Just a question in terms of, say you had, I've seen the chat now, but say you had 10 children applying for 5 places at the same school, and they all kind of met the same criteria. How is it a potluck then, or is there a very, very sort of specific way of doing that, of choosing?
Yeah, that's a helpful question, I think. Amy, I think I know how to answer that, but I'm going to revert to you to make sure that it's correct.
Yeah, I crackled again. Could you just repeat that just so I'm clear?
Sorry, imagine, well, you've got 10 children applying for 5 places, and they all, on the face of it, look like they've got the same criteria. They're all equally kind of appropriate for those places.
I see. Okay, so most secondary schools will use straight line distance from home to school as a tie break. Obviously, there are some situations where the last place that we can offer the children are the same over subscription category and the same distance. We get it a lot with blocks of flats, for example.
Oh, right, yes.
In that case, most secondary schools in the county will operate, well, they'll ask us to operate a random allocation, which involves us using a random number generator online. Some schools have different methods though, so we'll follow whichever method the secondary school have outlined in their admission arrangements, which is a published document that's available on each secondary school's website, and that outlines how they will allocate places.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I'm really sorry that we haven't been able to get through, particularly everybody with the hands up. As I said, if you want to put your question in the chat, if you haven't been able to answer it, we will pick them up. And equally, if people have sort of asked questions in advance and we've not covered those, we'll incorporate the answers into an FAQ document and share that round. You'll get the recording from today, and you'll also get the slides. Okay, so thank you so much for your time. I hope it's been helpful. And yeah, thanks for coming. Bye-bye.